we are living in an era where
Mhm.
everything has to be just quick. We need
Yes.
quick results within seconds, and we don't have time, I would say.
Yes.
Like even at times, I myself do feel that 24 hours are too less time to have in a day. It should have been 36 hours or 48 hours for that matter. How do you see synergies happening between conventional medicine, or I would say rather the modern medicine, the that we're looking at, the pharmaceutical medicine side of it, and the conventional for me is the natural medicine, natural healing, because as a founder of Anya Wellness, I strongly believe that modern medicine is derived from a lot of other natural remedies and natural therapies. Like the
Mhm.
first surgery, and if my facts serve me correctly, was done by an Ayurveda doctor who wrote
Mhm.
the Ayurveda itself, the Charak Samhita that's written. So
Yes.
it has evolved from it, the modern medicine. So for me, conventional medicine is natural medicine out there. So
Yes.
how do you see these two going together and helping us set up a more invigorating healthcare programs or healthcare offerings for the human beings?
So, like you, Pulkit, I also trained for a year as a naturopath. I did a year's course in naturopathy. My first preference is always to use natural health and natural medicine, although obviously I'm also trained and I've worked with a lot of medics. So I like to think I bring the two together where it's needed. So I do see that more and more people are looking, and it is exactly that, it complements. And as you quite rightly say, plants were here first. And a lot of the drugs that we have today are derived from plants, and from that they may have synthesized or enhanced or whatever. And also, if you look at the soil, they've done studies and there's microbiomes in the soil that are natural antidepressants. So when you say get your hands dirty, for instance, that's what gardening and planting and all of that does. And in terms of pulling it together, I absolutely see that that's going to increase. I'm also in a group where we are pulling together public health, we are pulling together the NHS, we are pulling together private parties and complementary health practitioners in what's called nature prescribing or social prescribing. So now more and more GPs over here are actually, rather than just going straight for the prescription of antidepressants, they might be saying to somebody, join a gym and we'll help pay for some of that, or get out for a walk and we'll help pay for some of those. And there's lots of activities where you can get exercise, get swimming, get moving, get walking, and they actually call it the vitamin N, vitamin nature prescription. So I'm really pleased to see that, because that's really really positive. And when I worked in a NHS mental health setting, I had
Mhm.
the consultant psychiatrist come out on my wellness walkabouts with the clients because they were hearing about the benefits and they wanted to know what it was all about. And that's how it started. And then I helped them and the unit to get some funds to build a sensory garden for the clients.
You just mentioned about vitamin N, and that's been something that's quite essential in our lives, I would say. I was just going through a report by healthmatch.io, and it's somewhere the other, while going through the report, I came across that roughly 1 billion people, or the 1 billion population on this globe, suffers from deficiency of vitamin D. And vitamin D is one of the essential, vitamins to be there in our body. And that's somewhere or the
Mhm.
other also linked to a bit of having mood swings and fatigue as well, if I'm correct on that particular part. So, what are your thoughts on this? How can we, on an individual front, the community front, and the corporate front, really get away from this unseen pandemic? I would say that we are getting being stared at. What are your thoughts?
So again, it's all about, we can start individually. We can also start with where we're employed or if we're employers. So individually, we have responsibility for our health. So everything starts with us. So as I said, we can start simply with our breath. We can start by making that time to connect with nature, as you say, either at the start of the day. It's strongest, we can get our strongest vitamin D, I believe, early in the morning. As you say, you
Yep.
go out, so do I. I'm an early morning person. So, and around the sunrise and the sunset is also, again, that awe-inspiring nature time. So that's really important. As I mentioned, we can also use biophilic design in our workplaces or our offices or our spaces.
Mhm.
Even simple things like where your bus stops are. Some councils over here are planting grass roofs, or you can have non-conventional roof. You can have different types of material on your roofing, apart from solar panels and so on. So you can encourage the wildlife along the verges. You can have people doing a wildlife seed throwing or bee pollination, flowers, regrowing that. You can also, as a community, perhaps, look at a street or a section of a street that was perhaps a bit run down and needs a bit of smartening up. And as a community, say, well, what can we do to tidy it up? So I've seen and I've been in areas where they've tidied a corner of a street and made it more a social connecting space and planted some pots up or grown some vegetables in pots. You don't have to be on a farm or by the sea or by a river to bring nature to your community.
Mhm.
You can have food banks where people each choose a vegetable or a fruit to grow in a bucket. You can grow potatoes in a bucket. You can grow on balconies. So where I used to live, I never had a garden, and I was really sad. It was the saddest time of my life where I didn't have my own little garden. But what I did, I bought rainbow coloured pots, and I would hang them from my railings, and I would just fill them with herbs, flowers, vegetables, and I started the whole group of flats gardening off their balcony.
Oh, wow.
I could walk to nature, but I didn't have a space to sit. And then we had a tiny little space where we decided to do it all up. And then we would have a couple of chairs, and then we could have a little sitting out area and look at all our beautiful balcony of plants. So you don't need a lot of room. People think you need a lot of room. You can start with a kitchen windowsill, for instance.
The tips that you have been sharing and the things that you have been sharing, I believe it's all just about changing perspective, because these are pretty easy things which we often make so difficult to, really get into execution, that we don't even think that it could be possible in this simplistic manner as well.
Exactly, exactly. So another tip I was sharing the other day with a client who was on a Zoom and she was feeling very fatigued and very low in mood. And I just said, you're hyperventilating. I could see she wasn't breathing correctly. So we just did a mindful box breathing technique. So just closing your eyes, visualizing your favorite space in nature, just slowing yourself down and just breathing in for the count of four, holding for the count of four, and then breathing out for the count of four. And the other thing you can do is just breathe in. And as you breathe in, you can say the word to yourself, calm or relax. And then as you breathe out, you can say the word release or let go. And if you want to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, you can. But if you want extra oxygen to your brain, you can just use the nasal breathing. So just breathing in and out through your nose for a minute or two. And then you can power that up. Then you can visualize a color. So if you're feeling a bit tired, you can visualize a bright yellow. Or if you're feeling a bit stressed, you might want to visualize a color blue or green. And then to really anchor those feelings in, as you find yourself more and more slowing down, you can pinch your thumb and first finger together and press it really firmly, and then release the tension. And then to finally release, between your thumb and first finger, you've got a fleshy pad. You can just press that acupressure point, and that also helps to release any tension that might be left there. And then when you're feeling ready, you can just open your eyes. So that didn't take more than a minute or two. And then what you can do is, if you're feeling that way again, to remind you, you can just press your thumb and finger together, and then it will help the body. It's a bit like a computer. So you've now keyed that word in to that computer, your human computer, and saying, oh, okay, it's time to relax now, or it's time to decompress, or it's time to energize. And you can do all sorts of things with that.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's just one example. The other one I wanted to share is a grounding tool or a calm card. So I had another gentleman who, high executive, very stressed, actually having thoughts sadly of self-harming, not managing his team, not being productive. So I asked him what he liked to do to relax normally. He liked to cycle. So I said, okay, I want you to have a little cycle ride. And when you go out on your cycle ride, I want you just to connect in nature the way that I showed him a couple of techniques. But I want you to think of something and find something that you can use as a grounding tool that we can then talk you through the process. So he actually found a conker. You can use a pebble. You can use, some people use a crystal. Some people don't have anything natural, so they might use a coin. It's still made of metal, so it's still natural. So whatever you choose, it doesn't matter. Some people like a wooden pebble. It really doesn't matter what it is. The only thing it needs to be is something that will fit into the palm of your hand. So if you choose your grounding tool and you hold that in both hands, one hand and then the other, or both together, whatever works for you, and use that with the mindful box breathing and your space in nature, if you can, then spray a scent as well, or have a rollerball with an aroma oil in and put on your wrist pulse points. You can do it that way, or a lip balm, whatever works for you, as long as it's scented. If you want to bring the scent in, you can just use all your senses in that way and have that as your go-to tool. So if you're feeling angry, you can use it. If you're feeling stressed, you can use it. If you're feeling tired, you can use it. And you also couple that with the stop method. So it would be stop, take a breath, do the opposite. So if you're feeling stressed, you might say on the out breath, I feel calm. And then think of the positive. So what's the opposite of stressed? It would be calm. So I'm feeling more positive. I'm accepting how I am. And then the other P is practice. So again, it's like anything. You need to practice this new tool to then you're like reprogramming your human computer. So you're not saying these feelings are bad. All the feelings we have are okay. It's all part of us. We have light and shadow self. So there is a good stress. You can actually have a good stress. It's about learning and being aware of our feelings and emotions and what that's doing to our physical body. So, for example, if you feel stressed, you might have your tongue up on your mouth, you might clench your jaw, you might clench your muscles. So that then leads to back and neck problems. They found that people who are stressed or depressed often are 6 times more likely to have back pain and vice versa. So if you've got pain of any sort, then you're more likely to have low mood. So we can't get away from this dynamic duo, as I like to call them, the mind body connection and the soul connection. So it's really important that we become aware. And as you say, it's all about changing your perception, not just of I haven't got time. Yes, we have got time. We can make time for what we choose to make time for. And if we can't make time for our health is our wealth. So even with wealth, I think Steve Jobs even said he had all the wealth in the world, but at the end of the day, he lost his life to cancer. So it's all about choosing our health as our priority. That then leads to wealth in many ways, not just financial.
That's so true. And thanks, first of all, thanks a lot for the exercise that you just, helped me with. It has really soothed me out. For an instance, my mind was completely calm. I lost my thought process of the questions I had in my mind. So I had to refer back to my notes while you were sharing the next part. But thanks a lot, for sharing that exercise and soothing me out at that point. And I totally, relate with what you just mentioned that we all need to prioritize our health. I myself, I would say a person a year before who never used to prioritize health, being, running a wellness organization and reaching that path, I never used to practice. I
Mm-hmm.
used to get up at around 6 a.m. in the morning, leave for my
Mm-hmm.
office by 7 a.m., get back home by 10 p.m., sleep, and there was no fixed routine to my day.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have ensured from September onwards in the previous year that I follow a certain routine. I have let gone. So I was very particular that my office has to be in this particular location. And I said, my health is more important. I vacated that office in January this year. Now
Mm-hmm.
I work from my home or I go to a close by co-working space where I work out of or a cafe where I feel like sitting. And
Mm-hmm.
I start my day now at 10:30 a.m. or 11 a.m. The first half,
Mm-hmm.
I still wake up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. whenever, my body, feels like waking up. I give my first priority to my health. And I have
Excellent.
seen a lot of change happening. I've
Mm-hmm.
lost approximately around 14 to 16 kgs of my weight in last 4 months. And that has brought a different level of confidence. Now when I go to meetings, I meet my friends after, let's say, who I'm not met for 5 or 6 months, and they're like, Pulkit, you have lost weight. So
Yes.
the rise it gives to my confidence level is very different.
Yes. Yes.
Above all, leaving all these things aside, I feel more healthier from inside.
Yes.
So
It starts from the inside out. And the gentleman that I spoke to you about, he used the practices. I had a couple of sessions with him, and he then was put back into a very difficult situation, and he was able to use that conker. He had it in his pocket. He knew the conker was going to shrivel eventually, and he would have to get himself another grounding tool. But I was so pleased that he was able to use that tool, to use the methods in the moment, in the workplace, in a stressful meeting, and manage those emotions and improve. And he actually then fed back later that I'd literally helped save his life.